This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
I call to order the June 24th meeting of the Waterways and Parks Commission. I see at least a quorum of members in the meeting, so we will begin with the meeting. If you want to speak, I believe in the software there's an ability to raise a virtual hand, and then I will see that and unmute you for speaking. I will announce you when you're unmuted so you can speak. Otherwise, you'll stay muted just to minimize the amount of noise that occurs. The first item of business is approval of the minutes from the February 26, 2020 meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? If so, this is where you can use your hand in the meeting. If not, if someone wants to move to approve and second, toss up a hand and we can get that done.
So moved. This is Kate Beaton.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Is there a second to approve the minutes?
I second.
And that was?
John.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, actually, I forgot, you can unmute yourself too, so that's probably easier. If you want to speak, just unmute yourself. And please say your name so we know who's talking. But thank you, Kate and John have moved and seconded. All in favor? I suppose unmute and say aye.
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 And any opposed? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Moving on to new business, the first item is recommendation to approve the 2021 to 2025 capital improvement plan. And that will be presented by Christine. I believe she will be joining the call now.
Thank you. So as she stated, before you is a recommendation for the 2021-2025 CIP. I'll go over a few of the program or projects within each of the funds, and then we can obviously go over additional ones if you have questions or want to discuss anything further. I'll begin with Fund 410, which is for the Hobbs Municipal Ice Improvements. Majority of the projects presented in the proposed CIP for the 5 years are mostly maintenance related. They include water heater replacement, skate carpet replacement, LED lights, evaluation of the Hobbs refrigeration system. That's the majority of what makes up 410. I don't know if you want me to go through each one and ask questions at the end, or if you want to ask questions during each fund, whatever.
Maybe we can just go through all of the different funds, and then after you've completed them all, if there are any questions, we can backtrack to one of them.
Okay. That sounds good. So then moving on to 412, that fund is for the Fairfax Pool. One of the projects to highlight there is the Safe Routes Trail that's being proposed in 2021. This would provide 2 trail locations to the pool, from Gulf Road to the parking lot and from Fairfax Street to the parking lot. One of the larger projects in future years is for the water slide and retaining walls. The slide is almost at its useful life, and there's a retaining wall that supports the slide, and there's also one at the main entrance that would be replaced as part of that project. In 441, the transportation improvements. Several of the projects proposed in this are reoccurring programs. We have programs in there for road lighting, bridge maintenance, citywide trails, traffic improvement. A project to note for the future is the 5K trail. This will encircle the Gulf Jeffers Road park facility and the green waste area around it. And then moving to 450 for the parks and recreation. We typically include additional funds every couple of years for playground replacements. There's also replacement for the roof at the Lakeshore Park Shelter included or proposed. Northside Dog Park, this would establish a leashless dog park, including surveillance cameras, on the north side of the city at Sundeck Park. Future projects include a lot of parks. We have Northwest Community Park, the Phoenix Park Farmers Market. This would be for our concrete needs. We need water sealant around there. Carson Park restroom replacement, relocation of the Roosevelt Park. This project would include shelters, relocation of the hockey rink and the general ice skating rink. There's a sports court replacement. That's for basketball and multi-purpose courts. And then there's out in the 5th year, the Princeton Valley Neighborhood Park is being proposed. And then looking at TID 12 on 468, in a future year, we have trail improvements proposed. Currently, we're proposing a 12-foot wide concrete trail. This is from the Haas-Fine Arts Building to 9th Avenue. And then in 469, TID 13, we have future years for a cannery district improvement. This would consist of the skate plaza, playground, scenic overlook of the Chippewa River, and multi-purpose field and athletic court. I just touched on some of them, but be happy to answer questions. We also have Dave Stolberg on the call. If there's something engineering related, he can also hop in.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Are there any questions from the proposal here? If so, just unmute yourself and identify yourself.
I have a question. This is Jessica Schoen. In Fund 410, Hobbs Ice Arena, the budget line item for bleachers, is that only for the design? It's clear in the description. I know it was lumped within their improvement. I was curious about the bleachers specifically.
That project is not just for the bleachers. There's also, that's for the evaluation of the refrigeration system.
Yep. I just didn't know if it included the bleacher replacement or if it was just, so the portion of the project that does include the bleachers, is it just the design of the bleachers or does it include the actual replacement of bleachers?
Sorry, I get it now. Yeah, it's just for the design of it. The bleacher replacement itself is in a future year outside of the CIP.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question, Kirk Dahl here. So there's a lot of data here, a lot of numbers. I'm impressed with all the thought that went into it, but could you just give us a few sentences on where the numbers came from? I don't know if they're reasonable numbers or not, or people are looking at cost overruns and so on. Just don't know the process.
Yep, so part of the process is before we start all this, we reach out to all of the departments for them to present their project requests and or funding needs to complete the project. They usually go out, get quotes to the best of their ability for the projects, realizing that, you know, inflation and stuff can be adjusted in the future years. This project, the CIP is really focused on the 2021. The outlining projects are proposed or futures, but no funding is actually allocated to them. Only 2021 would have funding allocated to it. So basically the departments will reach out to their vendors or their resources to get that information for us.
Okay, and then the second part of my question, it looks real comprehensive, but I don't know what has been left out that we might think ought to be included. I don't know how to approach that exactly, but someone has looked and prioritized and decided these are the priorities. I'm just trying to get a handle on whether there are other things that ought to be done that aren't listed here.
I can kind of touch on it, and maybe Jeff would want to jump in. I don't know. A part of the process is this is reviewed by the finance director and the city manager for review. I can tell you that projects might have been pushed out to future years, but nothing was eliminated. So we try to balance between our funding sources and what we're allowed to bond for and what we can accommodate through the needs.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Jeff?
Sure. Kirk, this is Jeff. Christine's correct. We do go out to vendors and we get cost estimates for these projects, but also we have plans that we put together that we update every 5 years, and that is a plan that does come back through Waterways and Parks to approve and recommended for approval to the city council. But many, I would say the majority of these projects have been vetted out through a planning process before they get to this level of approval on the CIP.
Okay.
This is Ellen. I don't know who was just talking, but that was nearly impossible to hear.
It was, your light was on.
Ellen, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Do you want him to reiterate what he said before so you can hear it more clearly?
I'm not sure what you did. It's muddy, but it's better than it was when you ran through that thing. So.
Okay. Do you want Jeff to repeat what he
Go
said?
ahead.
Sure, I'll just briefly state what I said. So the question was, how do these projects get on this list of the CIP and how is it prioritized? And the response was that we do go through master planning and we do work with vendors to get accurate numbers for the CIP, because the one thing that we don't want to do is present something in the CIP that we have to go back later to ask for more money once they're approved. So through master planning, prioritizing, and then working with vendors to get an accurate price.
Are there more questions or comments from the presentation? Okay. Seeing none, the order of business is the recommendation to approve the 2021-2025 capital improvement plan. Is there a motion to do so? If so, you can unmute yourself.
So move, Kirk.
Second, John Lord.
Kirk and John, okay. The motion on the floor, is there any discussion on the motion from the commission before a vote? Okay, seeing none, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor of recommending the capital improvement plan, please vote yes.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, seeing none, the plan is recommended. And we will move on to item B of the agenda, which is recommendation to approve the Boyd concept plan. Steve will present this. He is here in the chambers.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, Bill.
Okay. Thank you for having me here tonight. Before you, I want to present the master plan for Boyd Park, developed by the Eastside Hill Neighborhood Association in conjunction with Ayers Associates. It's important to note that the funding for this plan was paid 100% by the East Hill Neighborhood Association. Back in 2018, the Eastside neighborhood and the city were collaboratively to develop a master, or approved to develop a master plan for the park. The association felt that they could enhance the park through a master planning process. Since then, they met multiple times for public meetings. I believe their first meeting was held at the park itself, and they had just a big chalkboard there. And people just wrote what they would like to see in that neighborhood park. From that initial meeting, they met consecutively to develop some concept plans. Through this process, they had 2, 3, or 4 concept plans, and they finally narrowed it down to one. And in your packet, I put the concept plan that they favored the most. They had a 3D model done, but it was too much to send it through email. But some of the features of the master plan included an active lawn area where they could show movies or concerts or plays or just free play. They had an adventure playground, in a nature-based playground, community pavilion, hammock lounges, solar shade trees, and of course the skate plaza that has always been planned for that area as well. Chris Salewski is also on the line if you have any questions. But basically, if you can go to the plan, Pat has it up. They have the conceptual plan, and they move some things around. The big push was to get the playground closer to the restrooms, which they did. They added 2 play areas. They enhanced the natural park area. Some additional parking, a basketball court, a pickleball area, I believe a slope hill, a sliding hill, and also obviously still ice skating in the winter. That was very important to the neighborhood to keep the ice skating there. So there was also some ideas that just couldn't fit. I believe they talked about disc golf and some other amenities that just wouldn't fit in the neighborhood. So they threw those concepts away. So tonight we're presenting you the final concept to go in front of the city council. It's also important to note that any development of this plan or any part of the building of the plan, it's the neighborhood's responsibility to fundraise 100% of the costs. And once that cost is in the bank, the city would go ahead and start developing a construction plan for this area. It doesn't need developed 100% all at once, and they can pick and choose what they want to develop as they go along. So I can answer any questions. I think Chris is on the line, or maybe, Chris, are you out there?
I do see him, yes.
Okay. If you have,
I'm here.
Okay. If you have any questions of the master plan.
Chris, perhaps for any questions, is there anything you wanted to add to what Steve has already said, or are you good? Or
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of items to that. Thanks for that, Steve. That was a really good intro. One of the topics you talked about there was potentially adding some additional parking down there. One location that we did, that one plan item that we needed to update but did not, was the potential future parking on the west side of the park. That should be taken out. That is not something we want to put into that location at this time. So consider that scrapped from the plan is my point. And then also there was a lot of, I want to emphasize that there was a lot of engagement process put into this park planning process. And all of the decisions, everything was made up of East Hill residents. Early on in the project, we developed a steering committee to help guide the decision-making process. And that steering committee was made up solely of East Hill residents at that time. So they helped facilitate public meetings, getting the word out, getting people to public meetings at the church very close there. But, I'm standing here presenting the plan, but really this is a lot of their ideas that are going into this as well. I colored it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
okay, any members of the commission have any questions for Steve or Chris regarding the proposal?
I'm John Law. So this question for Chris. Chris, since we're developing a new park like this, is there any way can we add it to see if we have any Wi-Fi or any internet connecting to that part, so when people go out like a nice day like today, they can spend their time at the park instead of stay at home or something like that. Is there any way we can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. The next stage of this, after we've got a relatively good plan, is to start putting some numbers down as to what this might cost and figuring out what we can afford. But technology and infrastructure like that is hugely important to park planning in the future as we think about parks as amenities beyond just playgrounds and more of a neighborhood infrastructure amenity for Wi-Fi, electrical hookups for outdoor offices, whatever it may be. I really wish you could see the 3D, and I understand the file is rather large, but the 3D really, brings it to life and gives it allows the project to sing. But absolutely, we will definitely be considering that along with electrical hookups for 50 amps if a food truck or impromptu concerts happen, or I shouldn't say impromptu concerts,
Pop-up
appropriate,
concerts.
movies happen at that location.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hi, Chris. It's Jenny Sterling. I live in the 3rd Ward neighborhood, and I'm particularly interested in your planning process and the way that you've engaged all of the members who are attached to this beautiful park. Have you all done a good job of recording, collecting, archiving, all of the processes that you've gone through?
Yes. Yes, as best as possible. The project, just to walk you through a little bit more detail, the project kicked off towards the end of summer last year with the East Hill the East Hill picnic. And during that process, we had a variety of boards and a chalkboard set up. The boards were Adopt Democracy. If you know what that is, people take sticky dots and put them on images they like. The boards were focused on history, the important activities they'd like to see here, but we had a phenomenal amount of feedback just in that one meeting. And then from that meeting, the steering committee developed a series of goals to help guide the decision-making process. Those goals were then presented to a variety of public in the East Hill neighborhood and community, open to the public completely. Those goals were approved, and then more decision-making and concepts were put forward. 3 concepts were presented to the public. Those 3 concepts were gauged at that time by conversation, not as Adopt Democracy. From those 3 concepts, we narrowed it down to 2. Those 2 concepts, we put precedent image boards together, and people voted on those precedent image boards with the same sort of Adopt Democracy dots, and we calculated all the totals for those and have those in our background as well. And from that, we got one option that more or less was filtered through a variety of different ways to skin this. So in general, that's what it is.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any other comments or questions. Seeing none, at this point, we would take a motion and a second to approve the recommended plan. If you wish to do so, please unmute yourself.
This is Jen. I'd like to move to approve this Boyd Park plan.
Okay, Jenny, is there a second?
I'll second.
Who was that? Jessica, okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion among the commission before the vote?
Yeah, I'd like to say something.
Okay, who's this?
It seems like this is John Botkin.
Oh, yes, I see you now. Go ahead.
It seems like the burden of financing this thing is a little more than what neighborhood contributions could encompass or take care of. And I don't understand why, we just talked about the capital improvement plan and why the city is not getting involved with this with some funding.
Yeah, Jeff, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. So, as Chris was saying, we've been collaboratively working with the group. We do have a memorandum of understanding with the Esight Hill Neighborhood Association to fundraise for this, but we're also working with them to get grant funding. Because it is a city park, we have to be the ones that apply for that grant funding. So we're working with the neighborhood association to get some grant funding for that. In going into this agreement with the neighborhood association is that the neighborhood park has the amenities that a neighborhood park should have. And what they were looking for is to enhance that look of their neighborhood park, and we support that. We supported them doing that, and if they wanted to add some amenities, they're willing to go out and fundraise for it. Unfortunately, we only have so many dollars to go around for all of our community parks, neighborhood parks, special areas, and these public-private partnerships give us the ability to do projects like this. And again, we're helping in the way that we can as far as for applying for grants.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the concept plan from the commission? Okay, seeing none, the motion is to recommend the approval of the concept plan. At this point, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, the recommendation is approved. And we'll be moving on to item C of the agenda, which is recommendation to accept the donation of 3 dog park stick box libraries from Lori Schustek Agency. Steve also has this as well.
Yes, thank you. When I first arrived here in Eau Claire, Lori Stushek contacted us and she wanted to donate 3, she wanted to give a donation to the dog park. And then I called her back, and upon talking to her, she wants to donate 3 stick box libraries for the dog park. I told her, well, we're going to have a third one later on, our Northwest Dog Park. And she said then she'll donate 3. And I just wanted to bring this forward so we could accept this donation. And then those stick boxes would become part of the city's assets. They sit right by the entrance, and people put sticks in, probably balls, whatever they want, and dogs can use them at their will. So I'm looking for an acceptance of this donation.
Okay, are there any questions for Steve regarding the stick library? I just had a question, like once they're there, if any maintenance needs to be done in the future, would that be part of the city and the parks taking care of that, or?
They would be city assets, so the city would
Okay.
be maintaining them. Obviously, if they became unsafe, we would remove them from the parks.
Okay, but the city property after the donation? Then,
Correct.
Okay, understood.
This is Jessica Schoen. I'm just curious, are there any like health concerns, health safety concerns with the communal, aside from COVID, and more normal times? I mean, just like from a disease transfer thing with dogs.
That is a possibility. Just same way that if they use common drinking bowls in the dog park, that is a possibility. If people want to use them, they can, but if they choose not to, then they don't have to. I looked around, there are other stick libraries around in other dog parks. So it's up to the dog owner to make that decision if they want to use that or not.
Thanks.
And are there any liability issues? This is Ellen. If the wrong kind of stick gets in there or something?
I don't foresee a liability issue. If you look in some of our dog parks, there's just probably sticks laying on the ground from trees that have dropped in them. So I wouldn't think there would be a liability issue.
Right.
Any other questions for Steve? Okay, seeing none, I would take a motion to recommend the acceptance of the stick box libraries.
I can move to accept the stick libraries. This is Meredith.
Okay, second?
John Lowe, I'm second.
Okay, Meredith and John, is there any discussion among the commission before voting? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please vote aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay, seeing none, the recommendation to accept the libraries is passed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Item D on the agenda will be recommendation to approve safe routes to park plan. I think Pat will be leading that, and also Eric Anderson will also be on the phone for that. Eric, if you want, I will unmute you, so at some point you need to speak, you can. So you're unmuted now. And then Pat, you can go ahead.
Well, good evening. The City of Eau Claire has been working with West Central Regional Plan Commission to prepare the Safe Routes to Parks Plan. We've discussed this plan at some previous meetings of the commission, and several members of the commission actually helped out with doing some of the site audits that we did last summer. The purpose of the plan is for the city to promote improved pedestrian and bicycle access to our city parks, and also to increase the usage of our parks and promote a more healthy and active lifestyle within our community. The concept of this plan is similar to our Safe Routes to Schools plan that was prepared back in 2018, and that's a plan that we use almost on a daily basis when we take a look at street improvements in front of our schools in terms of what types of things are recommended in that plan, and we anticipate using this plan in a similar sense. So it'll be used as a resource guide as we plan future improvements to some of our parks, and then also as streets get reconstructed around some of our parks. Eric Anderson, the senior planner from West Central Regional Planning Commission, was the lead staff person that prepared the plan, and he's here tonight to kind of give a brief overview of the plan. City staff was also involved in providing Eric with some input along the way. The persons included Todd Quala, our previous park superintendent, Steve Roscoe from Parks, Chad Durkop from the Recreation Division, Leah Ness from Engineering, Steve Plaza, our current Parks superintendent, and then myself. The work on this started back in 2019, as you probably recall, and the background information that was put together included a community survey, then the site audits of each of the 32 parks within the city, and then providing additional background that included information related to demographics, crash data related to bicycles and pedestrians, and Eric will touch upon that a little bit. The copy of the plan is posted on our city website. We did send a copy of this out to the neighborhood associations for comment too. I have gotten some comments back from the neighborhoods, all very positive, just a couple suggestions that Eric and I will be going over the next couple of days ago and folding those into the plan. And then the link to the actual plan was included in your packet. This went to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee about a week and a half ago, and they recommended approval. And then we plan to take this to the City Council sometime in July for their recommendation and adoption. With that, I'll turn it over to Eric, and he can give you a little more background on specifics of the plan itself.
Thanks a lot, Pat. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me at this meeting. It was a great project to work on. Fun group, and listening to the CIP projects, the Fairfax, those routes or those trails from Gulf and from Fairfax, those were generated from this plan. So the city is already using this plan, even though it's a draft. So that was one of our, and I'll touch on it in a couple minutes, but that was one of our highest rated priority items in this plan. So I'm just going to go through about 4 or 5 pages in this document. So if you have it open or in front of you in some way, you can follow along. I just want to guide you through some of the more interesting parts or major parts of it. So the first one is on page 10. I don't know, Pat, are you going to? Okay, great. Yep, perfect. And page 10 shows the key findings. So on this page here, you can find, we have about 8 or so key findings from the document, from the planning process. So the top one there, you can see that many parks have a very high number of crashes involving bikes and peds within a 0.5 mile walkshed. And what we use now for a lot of the projects we're working on, when we did the Safe Routes to School plan for Eau Claire School District and bike and ped plan for Chippewa Falls, instead of looking at exact radius or like as the crow flies,
what we're able to do through GIS now is to actually use the actual walk shed, so the actual distance walked. So this is the actual distance based on the street patterns or trail patterns within a neighborhood or within an area. So actually 99 out of the 166 bike and ped crashes over a 5-year period were within a half-mile walk shed of one of the parks that are in this plan. So you can see that list there. One of the other big ones is bike parking at parks. Very few parks have bike parking. You can see towards the bottom there the connections that are needed from the streets to Fairfax Pool. So you can see that there. So that was one of the pages. If there's any questions along the way, just feel free to ask. But that was one of the ones I wanted to highlight. The next page, Pat, is page 20 and 21. And this here is we had a kind of a short little survey, but we really wanted to get an idea of how people felt, what it was like walking to parks, if it was pleasant or unpleasant, if it was safe or unsafe. So you can see here, so both pages 20 and 21 are the some survey results from the planning process. So we color coded each category. So if it's between 20 and 29%, it's that light blue. 30 to 39, it's the medium blue, and then that dark blue is 40% or more. So those are the problems, or those are the items that scored 40% or more. So if you, like the top left, if you see not a problem towards the top there, and if you go over to crime, you can see there it's 44%. So that ranked as not much of a problem. So the higher ones for somewhat of a problem was too much traffic, speed of traffic. So you can see those results there. And then what we did towards the bottom is we said, okay, for the ones that are more of a problem, we added those together to see which ones had the highest rank. So you can see that both on the left to get 2 parks, and then what we also did for Carson Park, the task force thought it was important. This is on page 21, Pat. Is the circulation system inside Carson Parks. We wanted to also look at that as well because we knew that a lot of people actually go into Carson Park to bike and to walk in there. There's a couple more pages here. The next one, Pat, is page 26 and 27. And page 26 shows all the crashes within the city limits with park locations on there. So you can see, in addition, we put together a heat map. So the areas that are brightest red, those are the higher concentrations of crashes. And again, this is all crashes on this map, not just bike and ped, and this is over a 5-year period. So you can see downtown, the area along Claremont and London and 53 and Hastings Way, and then out by the mall has the highest concentrations. In addition, with that downtown area, we have Wilson Park, we have Demler Park, and those are some of the higher concentration areas for bike and for all crashes. Then on the next page, page 27, is a heat map that shows bicycle and pedestrian crashes within the city. So on this one here, you can see all the red dots are bicycle involved crashes, and then the lighter blue dots are all the pedestrian involved crashes. And then what we did is we put together a heat map for that to show you the concentration of crashes just for bike and ped crashes within the city limits. And again, for that, a lot of the parks that pop up there are Wilson Park, Demler Park, Forest Street. You can see those parks there. So 2 more pages, if that's okay. What we did is we have for the whole city, but we also, if you looked at the plan, you can see that each park has its own 2-page spread. So Pat, I just thought it would be good to go to page 94 and 95 real quick, and I can show you how to read one of these park-specific sections. So each park has its own list of issues and strategies, demographic data, key key amenities, and then each park also has the half-mile walk shed and then the 1 mile walk shed as well. So, and you can actually stop at any of these, Pat, whichever one works for you. I just thought maybe people would be interested in Wilson Park. It shows downtown, but any of them, if you want, is fine. Pat's going to Wilson Park. That's great. So, as you can see here, you can better see kind of what I'm talking about when I talk about the half-mile walk shed that we look into. So, so on that page right there, okay, yep, page 32. So for each park, what we did is we put together within that 0.5 mile walk shed, total population age 19 and under, age 65 and older, and then persons in poverty. And then we also have the number of bike and ped crashes. You'll see that on the left-hand side within that half-mile walk shed, all crashes, and then households with one or more persons with a disability. And then we list out issues and strategies for each of the parks. And then if you go to the next page, Pat, thank you. You can see a map there that shows all the crashes. Inside the, I guess you say all the crashes that are shown on the map with the overlay of the half-mile walk shed and then the 1 mile walk shed as well. So each park that's in this plan has this. And if you remember the Safe Routes to School plan that we did, each school had a specific section, so that worked really good. But what we wanted to do, we thought this would be a good concept for this one as well. Also, real quick to note is we were able to get the data for sidewalks. So all the sidewalks that are present within the city limits, those are all labeled the black lines. So anywhere that you don't see a black line, those are areas that don't have sidewalks. Last but not least is page 102. As I said, there's on page 98, when you look at that, there's a list of recommended citywide strategies in that. So there's about, I don't know, maybe about 12 or so there. There's, yep, on that page there, you can see a long list of recommended strategies citywide. And then on page 102 is the list of the strategies with highest priority. So you can see a list there, and again, it's that sidewalk and trail connection from Fairfax and Golf to Fairfax Pool, pedestrian signs and painted crosswalks at street crossings to parks, park signs along streets before approaching a park. So some of the parks in the city limits do have that. Very, very few do. It's like a block before the park, you'll see that kind of universal park sign of a park approaching. So install bike parking at parks. So those are the ones there in that list there that have the highest priority. So it's kind of a quick overview. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Okay, thank you, Eric. The amount of information in this packet is quite impressive. Are there any questions for Eric or Pat from the commission? Hey, Pat. So, so the you know, say this is we approve the information here. Oh, where does this go from here, and what steps are taken to actually, benefit the city and the parks and the pedestrian access after this plan?
Well, this is really a working document for staff that we'll all have really readily at our desks. That when we're looking at specific improvements for a park, we'll pull out this plan, take a look at and see what some of the issues were that were identified, and then look at what some of the strategies were or recommendations were. So we'll guide our planning as we make improvements to the parks. And then in addition, when we're looking at street reconstruction around any of these parks, again, we'll take a look and see if there's a park near where a particular project is being planned. We'll look at the plan, see what the recommendations are, and try to, as much as we can feasibly possible, implement some of these recommendations as part of those street projects. So we'll be using this daily, similar to, like I mentioned, with our Safe Routes to Schools plan. That's a very, very useful document.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Any other members of the commission have any questions or comments for Eric or Pat? Okay, seeing none, I would take a motion to recommend approval of the of the plan. And a second. Any motions to approve the plan?
I move that we approve this plan.
Okay.
I'll second it. John.
Ron and John, I believe. Okay. It's up for vote now. Is there any further discussion amongst the commission before we vote? Okay, seeing none, we'll take the vote. All in favor of recommending the Safe Routes to Park plan, please vote yes. Okay, and any opposed? Okay, seeing none, the plan is recommended for approval. Thank you, Eric, for calling in. Moving on.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Moving on, item 3 on the agenda is the 2020 special events list.
So, normally in a normal year, we'd be likely in our 80 or 90 special event for the community. And as you can see, this is what we have for this year currently. The biggest impact has been the limitations to the number for gathering, which has just recently come up to a level that we would allow special events, and plus the physical distancing requirements. So slowly but surely we're opening up with some special events. As you can see that many of these, or all of these actually, are repeat events. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you want in regards to any specific special event.
Seems there are no question or comments on those unfortunately very small special events list.
Right, and I would expect next year that we'll see back to the usual numbers that we have previously.
Okay, the special events list was informational only, so there's no action required from the commission. And then we'll move on to the, director's report.
So while our special events have been limited this year, our work within our parks and forestry and recreation divisions keep going. We've done several projects during this time that we haven't had a need to prepare groups for coming into the park. So we've been doing some resurfacing of playgrounds, and then we just recently, well, it would have been back in May, and I'm just thinking it's been a while since we've had a meeting. I think our last meeting was in February.
Yeah, that's correct.
So this has been a while since we've met last. But we've completed our Half Moon Lake endothel treatment. The Owen Park restrooms are nearing very close to completion. The Birch Pavilion steps have been completed, and we will be having a handrail that will be added soon. So that's a question that has come up from folks that have seen the new steps at the Birch Pavilion. We've opened up our restrooms just recently, along with our playgrounds, play courts, fields, and skate plaza. The stormwater line between Carson Baseball and the parking area was completed at the same time we did the Birch Pavilion steps. We've worked, we mentioned earlier with the Boyd concept plan, we worked with the Boyd Park group to actually mow the prairie in the springtime this year to help with the prairie growth. We've actually helped outdoor more with some Pinehurst tree cutting for trail improvements and a disc golf course. We repainted the grandstands and rails in Carson Park Baseball Stadium. Unfortunately, it's not being used, but they look very good right now. And then also, we had an opportunity, it would have been a couple of years ago, we actually met out where the Southwest Dog Park and boat launch was going to be put in, and now we actually have the clearing. It's starting to look like an area that's going to have a very successful dog park and boat launch in that area. And anticipated for that to be completed by the end of October. Our forestry division has planted over 600 trees in our boulevard program. We continue to remove stumps from the trees. We actually, our forestry division helped clear out some of the trees in the Southwest Dog Park and boat launch. We installed a new parklet at Chippewa and First Avenue, and that was it was a beautification of an area of land that was purchased with FEMA dollars and had to go through a process of approval through that with FEMA. And then we're also planning on working with our Eau Claire Fire Department on removing some trees that have fallen down into the Eau Claire River that has created a safety issue for canoers and kayakers. And this is an area just to the north, or it'd be to the east of the Dewey Street Bridge. So our forestry division will be working on that. In our rec division, unfortunately, we've been hit hard in regards to what we can do with our programming. So most programming has either been canceled or put on hold due to COVID-19. Our Fairfax pool was closed for the year due to a pipe repair, and then also the COVID-19. We weren't going to be able to maintain those distances and with the number of people. And our Hobbs Ice Arena, I think everybody's aware, it's been since the middle part of March, it's been used as a temporary homeless shelter. So with that completes the director's report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from the director's report? Okay. Seeing no questions or comments, I have an additional item to add to the director's report section of the meeting, in which there is a resolution to be presented. Jeff will be retiring from the city of Eau Claire on July 6th. So a resolution. If you can see me on Pat's screen, I am holding up the resolution here in the chambers, and I will read it for the commission. The resolution states, whereas Jeff Bippinger, I have a bad habit of mispronouncing last names when giving out awards as I did last time. Jeff Bippinger was hired by the city of Eau Claire on September 3rd, 1996, and later became the director of the city's Community Services Department on December 21st, 2016. And whereas part of Jeff's responsibilities as director has been the administration of the city's Parks, Recreations, and Forestry Division, and staff liaison with the City Waterways and Parks Commission. And whereas Jeff has provided the commission and the staff with invaluable insight and direction on parks, open space, and waterway-related issues. And whereas during his tenure as director, Jeff has been instrumental in the completion of many park and waterway-related projects, such as Haymarket Plaza, Sundet Dog Park, Carson Park Playground, Owen Park Restroom Building, Half Moon Lake Management Plan, 5-year Parks Plan, and numerous improvements to Hobbs Ice Arena and Fairfax Pool. And whereas Jeff has worked tirelessly with community groups, the school district, and UWEC to promote cooperative agreements in order to enhance the park and recreation facilities of our community. And whereas Jeff will now be retiring from the city of Eau Claire on July 6th, Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Eau Claire Waterways and Parks Commission and staff acknowledges the time, enthusiasm, and dedication to Jeff Pippinger and to the Waterways and Parks Commission and the City of Eau Claire, and wish him the best in his upcoming retirement, dated June 24th, 2020. And I, on behalf of the commission, thank you, Jeff. Anyone, you may unmute yourself if you want to say anything to Jeff as well. I will be presenting him the resolution plaque now.
Thank you for your work, Jeff.
Can we vote no on this? I'd like to propose a no. We're not going to accept that retirement just yet.
Wow.
We'll miss you.
Yeah, sorry to see you go.
Well, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate this, and I have to say that this is one commission that I really thoroughly enjoyed because we made a difference. We made a difference in many areas, and you know, I have to thank Pat Ivory. You know, he's been a joy to work with these many years, and you know, just recently when I got promoted to the director's position, I got to work with Pat more, and I really enjoyed his friendship, and he's an amazing person. He's just thoroughly a joy to work with, and certainly I would say the same for the commission members. I enjoyed the compassion and the you know, this group is very passionate about the waterways and parks that we have, and they're a beautiful asset to this area. We live in a beautiful city, and you know, we don't take that for granted, and I really appreciated my time. So I want to thank each and every one of you, and I'll be up on the lake fishing and taking care of a water resource where I'm going to be living. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, and I'm sure everyone on behalf of the Waterways and Parks Commission thanks you for your dedication for all these years.
Thank you.
And after that, there's adjournment, and I think we will be skipping the group photo that somehow got left on the agenda. So if there is a motion to adjourn, I would take that at this time.
So moved.
And I think Kirk did that. Is there a second?
Yep.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second, Meredith.
Meredith, okay, thank you. All in favor to adjourn, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Good night.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689. Or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.